Hello, welcome to the Wildline Podcast. I'm host Dan. This is a podcast about movies and how much money they make at the box office. Today is going to be the normal weekend review show. I will walk through the top 10 for the weekend of February 22nd to the 24th, 2019. I'll do a little bit on the Oscars too, which are happening tonight. We'll walk through the big categories and see how the box office relates to who we think is going to win. And then we'll talk about what's going to happen over the next few weeks at the box office. But let's dive right into it. Number one this weekend, to nobody's surprise, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. It came in at $55.5 million is the current estimate. That's down a bit from yesterday. So yesterday morning, every weekend there's usually check-ins from, Deadline.com does it, and sometimes people work in the movie industry like leak numbers early. It was looking like How to Train Your Dragon, this is the third movie in the series, was going to do about $60 million for the weekend. But the Saturday, I think, was a little bit lighter than they had anticipated later on, and they extrapolate from that Saturday number for the Sunday estimate, which is where we get the $55.5 million from. So, and now I would say a super good performance overall. I mean, this one's surprising. Tracking on this, as of earlier this week, we were only looking at about $40 to $45 million on that tracking. So this really blew tracking out of the water. The original came out in 2010. I remember going to see it in the theater. I don't know why I saw it in the theater. It was very bizarre. It was a weird time in my life, I guess. Came out March 2010, How to Train Your Dragon. That one opened up at 43, closed out at 217. That was a pretty big surprise back then, too. Brand new animated sort of series. There wasn't like a proven IP behind it, but it opened strong. It was a really good movie as well and played strong for its entire run there. And so you're looking at well over basically a 5x multi on the original, which, it's a children's film. Usually they're over 3x. But when you're hitting the 5x range, that's a really special run. And that was the original. The sequel came out in June 2014. That opened up at 49, so a slight improvement over the original. Closed out at 177, so a little bit more sluggish of a run than the original, which it tends to happen with sequels. It's usually with the original, it's like word of mouth that spreads that it's good, so it takes a while. With the sequel, you kind of have a set audience, if you like it or not, so that's why that audience tends to dwindle a bit. Here with the third one opening up at 55. It's actually at $58 million because they did a preview night back in early February here, where it made about $2.5 million. It's like a super early preview, came out you can see it like 3 weeks before it comes in theaters. I think they've done that with a few different movies like Jumanji. And so it now does sit at $58 million. The quality of this film speaks for itself. 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, a 7.1 out of 10 from critics. So that's one thing to know with Rotten Tomatoes, and this is a perfect example of why Rotten Tomatoes is a useful tool, but one that can really skew the perception of what critics are thinking of a movie. So if you see a Rotten Tomatoes score of 91%, you think, oh my God, this movie must be absolutely amazing. But again, what does Rotten Tomatoes actually measure? It only measures whether a critic thinks it's above a 60% or not. And so basically when I say 91%, all I'm really saying is 91% of critics think this movie is better than a 6 out of 10. That's all I'm saying. So it does, in this case specifically, the actual score for this is more like a 71 out of 100, because that's the score that the critics actually gave. So it's not a terrible movie. It's not bad, but a 7.1 out of 10 is a lot different than a 91%, right? And so that's just one thing to know with Rotten Tomatoes. It's one of the reasons why I don't like it all the time as a way to measure the quality of a film. I just don't like that concept of measuring, I think it's good or not, thumbs up or thumbs down, and then you take a percentage of that. It just seems like this is what happens. It becomes very, very skewed very quickly. So critics didn't think it was terrible, but they didn't think it was a masterpiece by any stretch of the imagination, despite that 91% score. Audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is 89%, but that's easily skewed. But that score does match up with the A Cinema score that came out on Friday. Also, some other scores: ComScore, Screen Engine, Post Track polls. This is an in-person poll, I believe, at the theater. 5 stars from general audiences, which is amazing. A 90% rating overall. That's like freaking awesome. 5 stars from parents. They gave it a 93%. And then kids gave it a 92%. That's kids under 12 years old. So critics are sort of like, whatever, it's pretty good. Audiences are really kind of gushing over it. And that's a very good sign for its legs. So it already popped off. It seems like this thing is going to play super strong for the next month or so. Just to estimate where we think it could go, it's at 55. Let's really call it 58. It's at least going to do a 3x multiplier, so you're looking at 174 baseline domestic. I think 4x is probably, although sometimes, when something pops off like this, the multiplier tends to go down. I would guess it's probably like a 3.7-ish. So I would put it in like the 210 to 220 range domestic, which is so good. And that's going to beat the original as well. And so Universal kind of has to, and I guess it's more DreamWorks Animation, but Universal is distributing it, which is like the third distributor for these movies. I don't really understand how DreamWorks Animation works. I think they used to be their own distributor, but the last movie was put up by Fox, and this one's put out by Universal. In any event, this one's a big win. And you kind of have to wonder, now that it's performing so well, this is supposed to be the finale of the trilogy. It sounds like they're going to come back for more from this narrative universe. I mean, I certainly would if I was a studio. This thing's going to push 200 easy. You have a proven sort of narrative world and IP, which basically means engagement and awareness is already built in for your audience. I think you got to start keep sort of squeezing the orange to get all the juice out of it, and I think that the Universal or DreamWorks in this case will probably make something similar to this in the next 4 to 5 years and put something out, maybe earlier, you never know, but animation movies take so long to make. So fantastic performance. I think it's gonna have strong legs. Audiences love it. Critics are kind of, I wouldn't say muted, but like not overwhelmed by it. In terms of who went out to see this movie, a really big female to male sort of over-indexing here. 57% female to 43% male. Average movie-going audience is about 51% male. So the female audience showed up. What else in terms of demographics? Okay, 56% Caucasian, 22% Latino, 12% Asian, and 8% African American. No major call-outs there. A little over-index on the white audience, a little under-index on the African American audience, and a little bit of an over-index on the Asian American audience. So yeah, surprising. We'll talk about Lego Movie 2 here in a bit, which is not doing well at all. I heard some anecdotal stuff, maybe it was on Deadline, where like parents or kids were like wanted to see How to Train Your Dragon over Lego Movie. Like, is that what happened here? Did people not go out to see Lego Movie and wait to see How to Train Your Dragon? I guess that's possible. Something happened here where people showed up for this and didn't really show up for Lego all that much. It's not that Lego opened up that much smaller, but you would think that Lego Movie 2 would pop off and then this would get hurt by that because people would already spent their money. Taking a family to see a movie is easily $100 endeavor. People don't have this money laying around to go to like 3 movies a month. So you would think that's like going into this month, that's what I thought was going to happen, that Lego Movie 2 would take up that money and then How to Train Your Dragon would open at like 30 to $40 million, but it kind of reversed. So I'm not sure why it's performing so well. The first 2 movies are good, but there's nothing really to indicate this level of performance or overperformance, I should say. So I don't know, we'll keep an eye on that one. I do think that it's going to have really strong legs because the audiences are just over the moon about this film. So at least a 3x to 4x multi on this one. Okay, so that's number 1 this weekend. Number 2 was Alita Battle Angel, coming in at 12 million, a 58% drop, very high drop. Per theater average was $3,100. This one has made $60 million so far. This one is hoping that China's going to save it a bit. And China's going to open at about $61-ish million, which is pretty good. But you always got to keep in mind with the Chinese box office that the studio only takes in about 25 to 27% of the total. In the United States, they take home 50%. So basically, they make half as much money in China as they do for the same amount of box office in the United States. It's always something to keep in mind with these. Alita Battle Angel, James Cameron, Robert Rodriguez, they tried to launch this new franchise. It looks cool. I think it was kind of missing an action in the story department, maybe a little bit too formulaic, kind of a pastiche of sci-fi, fantasy avatar-ish film. So it was a big bet by Fox. They spent a lot of money on it. I think I talked about the production budget last week. It was $170. It was really $200 million, but with tax breaks, it was $170. This is it's a big miss. I'm not sure why Fox put all this money down. I guess because they believed in James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez, but at the end of the day, it's the script and the film itself that's going to sell. And there wasn't enough here to justify a $200 million budget. So I just don't get the thought process at Fox behind this. This is going to be a huge loss. I mean, you're looking at losses of at least $100 million and on up. That's the thing with the movies. It's like they're always, when you get above the $50 million, $40 million production budget range, they're big bets. And it's like playing, craps or something. Like if you put all your chips down and it goes wrong, you're going to lose a lot of money. Now you have the potential to make, MCU does this every film. They're a much safer bet. They make like $100 million to $300 million in profit on their big movies. I mean, that's amazing. But when things go south, you're going to lose that much. And so I think that's what's going to happen with Alita Battle Angel. Unfortunately for Fox and James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez. Okay, on to number 3, Lego Movie 2, the second part. Is it the official title, The Lego Movie 2, the second part? That's so stupid. $10 million this weekend, a disastrous 52% drop. Where is this coming from? In its third weekend, like, it's a children's film. This thing should be dropping like 45% tops. Losing theaters, lost 470 theaters. Per theater average is at 2,600. That's way too low for a third weekend. The story in this just gets worse and worse. I cannot figure out what happened here. I mean, the biggest issue obviously is the side films that sidetracked the audience from the main story, but like, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. If Warner Brothers was smart and go back in time, they would basically open up Lego Movie in 2014, then do the sequel in 2016, game over. Then you release the other sort of side story characters, like the Lego Batman movie. Then you do that. They screwed up. They switched the order. And I guess this is the result of that mistake. And I was like really against like the Lego Batman movie. It was like, why are you doing this so early? If you listened to the show back then, I was kind of ranting about it per usual. And I was like, this is going to hurt the main franchise, but I didn't think it was going to hurt it this much. There's not going to be a Lego 3 movie now. There can't be. They kind of have to go back to the drawing board a bit and think about. I think obviously the Lego Movie franchise is like I believe there's a lot there. There's a deep well in that sort of world, so they can go back and I think pull out a different character and think about it a different way and kind of not really a reboot, but just view it from a different angle, like Transformers is doing with Bumblebee, which I was right, by the way. I just want to call that out. I kept on saying that, but despite the fact that Bumblebee didn't do amazingly well this December, it was an attempt by the studio to sort of realign the Transformers story and universe in a different direction. And there was just an article like 2 weeks ago that's exactly what they're doing. So I think that the Lego Movie sort of situation is kind of similar. There's a lot that you can do with that universe, so do something different. Like, just don't do another Lego Movie. I don't know, they'll figure something out. But I do think that the mainline story here is over. There's not going to be a Lego Movie 3, the third part, anytime soon. It doesn't feel like, because of this poor performance. It's not going to lose money, I don't think. I don't know how much this thing made, but like, It's only sitting at 83 now. It's not going to go that much higher. Like, I don't know. It does not seem at all like a great performance for what this should have done. Expectation to me was this is going to open at like, what, at least 60, 70, maybe even higher. And now it's sitting at 83. So definitely a swing and a miss for Lego Movie 2, which is so surprising because going into this year, this is just one of those movies where you're like, oh yeah, this is easily going to make $200 million, no problem. And now it's going to struggle to make like, what, 120? So Warner Brothers has to go back to the drawing board with that whole series, I feel like. Okay, so that was number 3. Number 4 is Fighting with My Family. This is one of my call-out movies from last weekend. Watch this one. I think it's going to do quite well. It is directed by Stephen Merchant, the guy from The Office. What else has he been in? Hello Ladies, that amazing HBO show that they canceled. Absolute fools for canceling that movie. Oh, that TV show. It's so good. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson's in this. It's a wrestling movie, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so here's the story on this, though. Really strong cinema score. Opened really well in a very strange limited release from MGM. I think they put it in 4 theaters last weekend. Just bizarre. I don't know why they did that. But now it goes to wide, and it's sitting at 3K per theater and made $8 million this weekend, which is good. It's not like amazing. So it sits at $8 million and a quarter, $8.2 million. The 0.2 coming from last week's limited release. But okay, so you hear 3K per theater and you're like, oh, that's not that great on a wide release opening at all. But there's something here. I don't know what it is. There's something about this movie, and Deadline called it out in their article today. They're like, this is a 4x, 5x multiple easy. So, and I agree with them. I feel like this thing is going to do probably $40 million or something like that. There's just, it's like a strange combination of things. You have the whole wrestling audience involved. You have like the family feature involved. You have Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson involved. There's like all these little things mixing in the pot that I think are going to make it perform quite well. It's got a good message to it, strong audience scores. So we're going to keep an eye on Fighting with My Family. This is a good start to its wide release, but we really can't tell where it's going to go. If I saw this for a normal movie with all removed from context, I'd be like, well, this isn't going anywhere. But because I know all that other sort of information, I do feel like it's going to just keep playing well. I think I'm going to call it out. Like, I'll have to make a prediction here. I'm going to say that, like, the drop next weekend, typical movies about 50%, right? Maybe a little bit higher, like 50 to 55%. I feel like this one's going to drop 40-ish%. That's what I'm going to call out. Maybe even lower. I don't know how long it's going to have those low drops, but I think it's going to play very well for a long time. And I'm looking at a good $40 to $50 million total take on this. Maybe even higher. We'll see. Okay, so that was number 4. Number 5 was Isn't It Romantic from Warner Brothers via New Line. 7.5 million on the weekend, 47% drop. Per theater average was $2,100, still in about 3,400 theaters. Total gross so far for Isn't It Romantic is $33.7 million. This is the rom-com movie that was a big play for Valentine's Day. It's doing okay. I mean, it didn't really bomb, but it didn't really break out either. I think they're going to be happy with it. I think this is one of those movies that's kind of better on a VOD streaming platform. So maybe they'll make some money on that back end. On the front end, it's doing okay, though. 6 was What Men Want, 5.2 million, 51% drop. Per theater average in its third weekend is $2,100. Actually, more like $2,200 per theater. Total take so far on this one is 45 million. Again, very similar to Isn't It Romantic, a Valentine's Day play. I didn't think Isn't It Romantic was going to break out. It's kind of where I thought it was going to be. What Men Want, I really thought was going to break out. I thought it was going to make like 30 to 40-ish, maybe on higher during that Valentine's Day weekend slot, but it didn't happen. Not really sure why. I don't know if it wasn't because it wasn't a fantastic movie or just didn't like capture the zeitgeist right now. It didn't break out, but it's doing okay. Number 7, oh my God, I forgot about this movie even being out. Happy Death Day to You from Universal and Blumhouse, $5 million. I like talked about this movie for like 30 minutes last week and I totally forgot about it. Okay, so $5 million in its second weekend, a pretty good drop for a horror movie second weekend, not gonna lie. 47% is not bad. Usually with the horror movie in its second weekend, especially a sequel, you're looking at like high 50s, low 60s and a drop. Theater count right now sits at 3,200. Per theater average is pretty anemic at 1,500 in its second weekend. That's bad. Total take so far is $21 million. This one's going to struggle to make it to like 35. I don't think it's going to get there. And so I talked at length about this one last weekend, so I don't want to dive too deep into it. I ended up seeing it, or at least a version of it, I'll say. It's not that bad. It's actually kind of fun, but there is a big, like, it's not really a horror film anymore. And I don't know if audiences picked up on that in their trailers or the early word of mouth. It just didn't pop off like Blumhouse wanted it to, or anybody in the box office world expected it to. I think the expectation for me was, easily opens in the 20s, maybe even the 30s. And now it's like struggling to make $22 million by the end of its second weekend. So something happened here, I traced it back to product conception last weekend. And I think that still makes the most sense. Like, maybe too quick of a sequel. It's only 16 months from the original. That never didn't hurt Scream 2, right? That came out a year after. But it felt like it honestly, in the trailers, it felt like a retread. I wasn't excited for it. I was like, yeah, whatever. The first one was awesome. I love the first one. It's such a fun movie. But there was no reason to revisit that world. So I'm not sure why. I think Blumhouse saw it do so well, and Universal's like, yeah, let's do this. We'll put it out. And they sort of rushed it through, it seemed like. It's not that bad. It's not a bad movie. It's nowhere near the original, though. I don't know. It's a completely different movie. Not obviously it's a completely different movie. It's a completely different quality. And it's like not a slasher movie. It's like a weird sci-fi comedy time travel movie. So I don't know. I do think that they rushed it out and they didn't make it as unique and different as they should have. And that's why there's no hype, and that's why the audience really didn't show up. Number 8, Cold Pursuit, the perennial wintertime Liam Neeson action thriller genre film, sits at $27 million here in its third weekend. Did 3.3 this weekend, which is okay. Overall take's not bad. His press tour obviously I don't think helped at all. It probably cut out a good, 10-20% of the audience who might have gone to see it like, nah, I'm not gonna see this now. That's my take on that. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay performance, very typical genre action movie in the wintertime performance. It should be a little bit higher, though. You'd hope it to be around 30, 35 by now. So it's a little bit depressed. Number 9, The Upside, still playing, 3.2 million, 41% drop. Per theater average is not bad in its 7th weekend, $1,500. It is just about to break the $100 million mark for The Upside. I called this one a little bit early too. I don't get them all right, but I got this one right. This one definitely broke out. It felt like it was going to break out. Bryan Cranston, Kevin Hart, just that duo just seems to work really well, especially in the trailer. So I think people have showed up. Apparently it's a heartwarming movie. It's very different than what else is out there right now. It's kind of a throwback to like the movies that came out, I think, when I was younger, like in the 1990s. You don't see a lot of these movies anymore. I think that's one of the reasons why it's doing so well. It kind of has a unique voice in the marketplace. So Upside about to break $100 million. Big win for STX, and they needed one. Let's see. Number 10 was Run the Race. I don't know nothing about this. It's roadside attractions, so I'm assuming it's probably religious, maybe. Maybe not. I could be totally making that up. I don't know anything about this film, but I just have the numbers. 2.2 million, opened up on 853 theaters. Per theater average is 26, almost 2,700. That's okay. I guess it's an okay performance. I don't even know anything about this movie. I think the limited nature of the release, the low per theater average on that release means it's going to disappear pretty much immediately. Unless it's a really good movie or it has the right audience, because if it is a Christian film that has a built-in audience that will come back over and over again, so you're probably looking at a lower drop, but it's not really going to make that much money overall. That's it for the top 10. That's a quick little rundown. Anything limited coming out? Nah, fuck it. Let's just go on to the Oscars. That's what I really want to talk about. Now, I don't have the box office numbers for all of these movies, so I'm kind of have to go on what I remember and sort of just my general take. So much for show prep, right? So let's just walk through the big categories, and I'll go through the nominees and see what's going to win here, and kind of talk a little bit about how the box office is going to have an effect on these movies. So Best Picture, obviously, let's start with the big one. You got Black Panther, Black Klansman, Bohemian Rhapsody, The Favorite, Green Book, Roma, Star is Born, and Vice. I think the favorite right now to win is probably Roma. I put The Favorite at 3 of them: Roma, Green Book, and The Favorite. Green Book obviously won the Golden Globe. Did Roma won the Golden Globe too? Because they have drama. I don't even know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Green Book won a big award at the Golden Globes for like best film or something. I don't know. So that's why that one's kind of doing pretty well. It's also kind of what I would call like the middle brow favorite. It plays really well throughout the country. It's not that arty, whereas like Roma is super arty. The Favorite, as my mom literally said, the very Midwestern. Well, that's kind of a different movie, isn't it? Which is what you're going to get for a movie that deviates slightly from the best pick norm. So those are the 3 favorites. Black Panther obviously is the best box office, but it just doesn't have, I think, the critical pedigree or sort of like clout to win Best Picture. It could, but I really doubt that people in the Academy are going to be like, yeah, Black Panther's a better movie than Roma. Like, I just don't think the voters are going to... Because remember, this is people in the Academy. The Producers Guild, the Directors Guild, the Writers Guild, the actors, SAG, like all that sort of stuff. Like, those are the people that vote. So you have to remember that that's who we're talking about sort of picking these selections. My guess is that Roma wins hands down pretty easily. Dark Horse, maybe A Star is Born, because everybody loved that movie. I hated it. At least I hated the last like hour. Vice and Black Klansman, I don't think really have much of a chance. I don't know if they do ranked voting, though. I can't remember if they do that or not. If they did, the smaller films might have a chance. But I think Rome is going to win, despite the fact that it was released very limitedly in the United States. It was originally released in Mexico. You have to be, in order to do the best foreign language film, you have to open your movie in that foreign country first to be eligible. So I know that it opened in Mexico in like limited theaters. The big theaters wouldn't take it though in Mexico, from what I remember. There's a lot of controversy. I think it's kind of Netflix sort of. Well, the issue there is that, and one of the biggest issues in like Hollywood entertainment and movies and streaming is the release window. And so basically right now, the way that it stands, and has been this way for I want to say like 5 to 10 years. I'm surprised it hasn't. This hasn't broken yet, but the release window is this: you put out a movie, you have to wait 90 days until it is released on digital formats. That's like set in stone for 90% of wide release movies. It cannot come out on digital version, whether it be rental on VOD or buying a digital version for $15 on iTunes or whatever. iTunes, what is that? I feel like iTunes feels so old to me now for some reason. You have to wait 90 days, 3 months essentially. Roma, because it was put out on Netflix in December, but then it was in theaters only like a month before. I think the Mexican theater changed, like, you're breaking like the golden rule of our business. What are you doing? And like 10 years ago, I'd be like, screw you, theater owners. What are you talking about? Like, you can't control content and what people want. But now I'm like, no, there's a reason like that's in place. Like, it's like a business contract essentially to give an exclusive run to theaters, and basically preserves that experience as something being special. I'm a little bit more sympathetic to that now than I was before. But that's why Roma, but it's funny because, and that sort of brings up, if Roma does win, it's essentially, I believe, the first Best Picture winner coming from a streaming studio, which would be kind of crazy when you think about it, because Netflix just started producing their own content, 6 years ago. It was almost 6 years ago exactly when House of Cards came out in 2013. I remember, because it was all over the subway in New York. So that would be amazing. 6 years from nothing. And that was, they started out in TV, remember? From nothing to a Best Picture winner. That's pretty awesome if that happens. And I think that that's going to happen. And Rome is going to win that. Actor in a leading role: Christian Bale, Vice; Bradley Cooper, Stars Born; Willem Dafoe, Eternity's Gate; Rami Malek, Bohemian Rhapsody; Viggo Mortensen, Green Book. I feel like this one's a little bit tougher, but right now I feel like the hype is behind Rami Malek. It's hard though, because Bohemian Rhapsody was mostly directed by Bryan Singer, and there's a lot of sexual allegations against him. Does that hurt him in the voting? Maybe. But like, the people who are voting are in the industry, so I think they really respect Rami Malek's performance. I feel like this is a tough one to call. I don't think Willem Dafoe has a chance at all. I think it's between Cooper, Malek, and Bale. Maybe Viggo can pull it out, possibly. Again, Green Book's like this weird movie because it's a real crowd pleaser outside, I think, the big cities. And I don't know how that plays with the Academy. Like, I feel like if this was like just middle, like if this was like a popularity contest, I think Viggo might win. I don't know. I don't even know what I'm talking about. I just feel like it has this very specific attraction to it, where it's like a very safe, very sort of, this is a Best Picture role, this is a Best Picture movie, like Oscar bait would be the term, I guess. That's what that role feels like, so I could see it maybe winning. My guess it's going to be Rami, with Christian Bale as sort of like the second on that one. Actress in a leading role, I think the favorites right now are Lady Gaga in A Star Is Born, Alita Aparicio from Roma, Olivia Colman, the favorite Glenn Close, Melissa McCarthy. Glenn Close won the Golden Globe, and she won last night at the Spirit Awards. So that gives her a lot of, I think, clout. Because I don't know who votes in the Spirit Awards, so I don't really know if that really crosses over with the Academy voting. Yalitza from Roma, I think she might win. I think the favorite is the favorite. I think Olivia Colman does win, with Lady Gaga in second and Glenn Close probably in third. But I think it's going to go to Coleman. It seems like a very Oscar-ish choice. Actor in supporting role, let's see, we got Richard E. Grant, Sam Rockwell, Sam Elliott, Adam Driver, Rashal Ali. I don't know, this one's really tough. Sam Rockwell is pretty much out because he's in the movie for like 5 minutes. I think it goes probably, everybody else kind of splits the vote and it goes to like Richard E. Grant, I would imagine, because he did win last night at the Spirit Awards. It just felt like a very... I don't think Sam Elliott has a chance, really. Adam Driver, I don't think either. Ali, maybe. It's probably Ali and Grant. I think it goes to Richard E. Grant. I love that I'm not talking about box office performance or anything. I'm such an idiot. Like, I mean, if you went with box office performance with any of these choices, like, it pushes Green Book way higher, I think. And A Star Is Born. Wait, what am I talking about? And Bohemian Rhapsody. Like, if you go back to leading actor, like, the box office performance probably helps A Star Is Born and Bradley Cooper the most. If you're looking at actress in a leading role, A Star Is Born, again, helps push Lady Gaga maybe a little bit higher. In supporting role, I think box office actually hurts Black Klansman and Vice and Can You Ever Forgive Me, and helps Ali and Sam Elliott a little bit. So it's actress in a supporting role. Amy Adams, Marina de Tavira, Regina King, Rachel Weisz, Emma Stone. I don't know, this one's tough. I feel like obviously Stone and Weisz are gonna offset each other for the favorite. I think it goes to Regina King. I think that's the favorite right now, from If Beale Street Could Talk. Maybe Amy Adams as like a dark horse, possibly from Vice. I don't know. Animated feature, don't really care that much about. Probably gonna go to Incredibles 2. Cinematography, I just want to call out, I want Cold War to win. I just wanted to win something. Such a wonderful film. What is it? Costume design, I don't care. Directing's a big one. Let's talk about that really quickly. Roma, Black Klansman, Cold War, Vice. The favorite, I want Cold War to win. It's probably not. It's probably going to go to Roma because that's going to win Best Picture. Any other ones you want to talk about? Music, probably Star Is Born, whatever. Why are the writing awards at the bottom of this? This is ridiculous. The writing awards should be like near the top. This is just so insulting as somebody who studied literature for so long. Um, okay, adapted screenplay. You have Buster Scruggs, Coen Brothers. If Beale Street Could Talk, Stars Born, Black Klansman, Can You Ever Forgive Me? This is a one where I think Can You Ever Forgive Me has a good chance of winning. I think If Beale Street Could Talk also has a great chance. Maybe Ballad wins. I don't know. And this one's really wide open. I don't think A Star Is Born is going to win, but I think the other four all have a good chance of winning. Writing Original Screenplay. This is like one of my favorite awards. The Favorite, First Reformed, Green Book, Roma, and Vice. Vice is not going to win, I don't think. I think it's between Green Book. Maybe it does kind of feel like a Roma Favorite, First Reform race. But Paul Schrader, who wrote and directed First Reform, he's had a really contentious relationship with the Academy. So I think that hurts him a lot here. I think it probably, gut says it goes to The Favorite, but I think First Reform could pull it out. It did nothing to the box office, though, I'll tell you that much. But the writing awards are so different. They don't really... because if you're going on like box office performance, like A Star Is Born would win adapted screenplay. I don't think it has a chance. It's one of those categories that's like just box office has very little effect on. So that's the Oscars. It's the end of the award season. It's been a long one. I feel like I started talking about it in like October, so it's been a long time. I will say this is like a kind of summary on the award season and what happened this year. It did feel like it felt like a strange season. Because a lot of the best films weren't nominated for things. And stuff like Leave No Trace, Eighth Grade, and there's probably Shoplifters. Like, why are none of those up for Best Picture? That doesn't really make any sense. And I think it kind of speaks to the fracturing of the culture around filmmaking. It's like becoming, I think, very tiered and hierarchical, where something like Black Panther's a great it's a fun movie. I wouldn't call it a great movie. It's a fun movie. It's a really great comic book movie. Bohemian Rhapsody is probably a really fun movie. I haven't seen it yet. It's like a ridiculous biopic. They have zero place being in the Best Picture nomination. The rest of them, Vice doesn't belong there. A Star Is Born doesn't belong there, really. Maybe. Green Book really doesn't even belong there. Like, where's Leave No Trace? Where's Shoplifters? Where is these other great movies that came out this year that have just been, I don't know what happens. They get silenced or they get lost in the shuffle. I think a lot of it has to do with the dwindling power of indie cinema and that whole scene, where I feel like 10, 15 years ago, the indie studios and the indie imprints had a lot more power than they do now. And the fact that we're seeing movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and Black Panther get nominated for Best Picture, it just speaks to the fact that like these other voices are getting drowned out, which is ironic, right? Because Black Panther, is obviously promoting an oppressed voice, and so is Bohemian Rhapsody. But I think within cinema, those movies are actually drowning out the more unique voices, like women directors that are doing awesome films that just can't even get nominated for this stuff. I don't even think anybody considered like Leave No Trace, which is, I'm not going to go on a rant. Because, she also did Winter's Bone, which is absolutely brilliant. One of the best American films of the last 20 years. And she did it again. And this is obviously a clearly focused on one movie that I'm pissed that didn't get nominated. No writing awards, nothing. It's just absurd. Also, why isn't Cold War in a Best Picture nom? Like, Cold War needs to replace Bohemian Rhapsody easily. I mean, I dare anybody to watch that movie and think that that Bohemian Rhapsody or Black Panther are in the same league of filmmaking as that. And, whatever. The Oscars is obviously, to some degree, a popularity contest, but I think people overstate that. This is people who work in the industry. This isn't a popularity contest at the end of the day. This isn't a democracy. This is a very set, finite group of people voting for industry insider awards. And so it's just kind of sad that the more, I think, unique and rich voices in filmmaking are not being represented here, which is a perennial complaint against the Oscars. But whatever, Moonlight won 2 years ago, and that was the best film that got released that year. It was like one of the first times following the Oscars and filmmaking in depth, where that I feel like that happened. The best, most unique, most experimental, most progressive, groundbreaking film won Best Picture, and it deserved it. Certainly over La La Land, which I love. But Moonlight was by far the best movie that year. So, I don't know. That's my rant. I feel like the Oscars is... this was one of those really conservative years where they didn't really know what to do. And I think it's just the industry's so confused about what's high art and low art and what's good and what's bad and what should be promoted and what's award winning and what's not. And I think that confusion is sort of playing out here with the nominees. Okay, enough of my awards rant and art film rant. Let's talk about what's coming out of the box office over the next couple of weeks. Okay, so we are already to March, folks. March is on Friday, March 1st. So we have two new wide releases, Greta and Tyler Perry's A Medea Family Funeral. I feel like Tyler Perry stuff is kind of getting played out a bit, but he always has a built-in audience that goes to see his movies. So maybe it opens at like, what, I don't know, 20 million-ish? I would say maybe like 15 to 20 million would be my guess on that. Greta is from Focus Features, which is, kind of like an indie imprint, sort of. It's a little bit bigger than it used to be. Neil Jordan, director. I don't know that much about this one. It definitely looks like an art film. So it's opening on 2,000 theaters. Wait, what? Why is that opening on 2,000 theaters? I don't know. I think I saw the trailer for this a couple of times. I don't know that much about this one. So, my guess is going to be a huge, massive flop. If I've never heard of it, really, I think I did see the trailer. But if I don't know a ton about it and I follow this shit constantly, it's probably not a good sign. And so I would guess, I don't know, $7 million, maybe $8. What else is going on? Limited release, The Wedding Guest, thriller from IFC. I don't know that one. Climax from A24, an A24 horror film. Why have I not heard more about this? Oh, that's that weird, crazy dance movie. It's like Mad Max Dance Rave or something. I don't know. It's so bizarre. Perfect A24 movie to put out. But it's just those two wide release. And then, of course, March 8th, we're looking at Captain Marvel. Now's a good time to start that conversation. I can't wait to talk about this movie. Quick take on that is, obviously, MCU. It's coming out 2 months before the last Avengers film comes out. A weird timing on that. I might have pushed it out to August, but whatever. I think March is pretty much wide open for this movie. Tracking so far on this is all over the place, but you're looking basically at 100 to 150 is a ballpark. I think 130 to 140 is probably a little bit more accurate. And like I said last weekend, like if this thing pops over 150, that's an amazing performance. It goes below 150, who cares? Anything below 100 is not good. So it's got a really wide field to play, and I see it doing pretty well. There's a campaign to go after it from the alt-right trolls, per usual. The same thing they did with Black Panther. Oh, it's a black person in the lead role. I must attack this film. It's so stupid. And then this one, it's Brie Larson. She's a woman, and she's not exactly, a fascist, so we must attack her constantly. It's so bizarre. We live in the most bizarre world ever. I don't think that's going to have any effect, really. Like, people love MCU. They love Brie Larson. I think they've been really excited for this character to show up on screen. I would expect at least a 130, 140 opening and on higher to me. Like, this is more like it could open at 160, 170. I have no idea. So I expect really strong performance of that. I don't think it's going to falter at all. 5 Feet Apart and Wonder Park open on the 15th. Wonder Park is an animated film. 5 Feet Apart, I know nothing about. How do I not know anything about these films? Am I losing my touch? 5 Feet Apart, no, I know why. Because 5 Feet Apart is from Lionsgate and CBS Films, which are basically like the lowest tier, wide-released studios that exist. So that's probably why. I've never seen a single freaking ad for it. Wonder Park as well. That one's from Paramount Animation. I don't think that's going to do all that well either. So what that basically means is Captain Marvel has a wide open second weekend on the 15th. Then we get to the 22nd of March. Jordan Peele's new movie comes out. He also wrote this one too. This is him all in. Blumhouse Productions again, being distributed from Universal. The Normal Relationship. I have no clue what this is going to do. but I do know it's going to do well. Production budget's only 20 million bucks. I would say this thing's at least going to open at 40 to 50, maybe higher. It's just Jordan Peele and Get Out. Everybody loves that movie. Doesn't matter who you are. Everybody saw it and thought it was a really fun movie, and it was. So I think people are psyched for this one. I'm not that psyched for it and I say this as a horror movie kind of aficionado nerd. It looks interesting, but like, yeah, I get the mirroring. Like, I like that's okay. That's a cool sort of whatever. Maybe I'm just like, I did not like the trailer that much. It seemed a little bit too in your face. There wasn't a lot of subtlety going on in that trailer. There wasn't a lot of mystery either. Like, I kind of know what's going to happen. Oh, their doubles show up and then I don't know, they fight and stuff. So I don't know. I'm not that into it, but I think it's going to do very, very well. I would think a big win for that if it breaks that $50 million opening mark and gets somewhere like Halloween, remember, opened up at like 76, like mind-blowingly good. I think it could push that if things align well for it. Okay. And then 29th, Dumbo. Oh god, that could be a huge bomb for Disney. Colin Farrell's in it though, so I'll probably see it. Love him. I don't know about that one. Dumbo, it's a March. I feel like Disney always has a big March movie that comes out because March is not like a blockbuster month. This one looks a little bit light besides Captain Marvel. I guess Us is going to be big. Dumbo, I just don't see being all that huge right now. I think it'd be lucky to open above 50. I think it's probably going to go maybe below that. Am I speaking out of my ass right there? Dumbo below 50? I don't know. Once we get closer, I have a better guess on that one. Unplanned, Pure Flicks. Is that like... Oh god, more religious movies. Can we just ban those movies from the blocks? I cannot deal with more Christian films, or like every week there's another Christian film coming out. Just put it on streaming. Don't bother the rest of us with that stuff. Then you're into April. April's gonna be fun though. You got Shazam, Pet Sematary opening up on the 5th. What else is coming out in April? Just gonna spitball on here. After Hellboy, Little Missing Link, The Curse of La Llorona. Which I think is going to do quite well. Blumhouse horror movie. I guarantee you. Okay, if we're talking about audience breakdowns for demographics for The Curse of La Llorona, average movie is 23% Latino. I think that thing pushes 40-50% Latino. That's like a foundational like story in the sort of Mexican American community. So I think it's going to do quite well. And a really good play by Warner Brothers and New Line to put that one out. I thought it was Blumhouse. Maybe it's not Blumhouse. Why did I think that was Blumhouse? No. Oh, I guess it's more like the James Wan Conjuring people, maybe. I don't know. Breakthrough, Penguins, documentary. What the hell is Breakthrough? I don't even know what the hell it is. I need to do some more research on this spring. What am I doing? Avengers Endgame comes out the 26th. White Crow, also on the 26th. The big highlights to me are obviously in the next couple of months, Avengers. I think La Llorona does very good. Hellboy remake, I don't see that going anywhere. I think Pet Sematary does pretty good too. But I think the biggest highlight in the next month is definitely Captain Marvel, with Us in a kind of a distant second. Anyway, guys, thanks for listening. This has been the Wildline Podcast. I will be back next weekend. We'll talk about who won at the Oscars. All right, take care.